Previously on Yugioh OCG, we took a look at Booster 4 and, along with it, the insanity of high attack, low-level monsters like Mechanical Chaser and Gemini Elf. This was as big a shift, if not bigger, than what Volume 4 presented with Summon Skull. With the new volume on the horizon, this means a fresh lineup of cards that are easier to obtain than the booster sets, and thus fresh soil for a new meta to bloom. Here we have Volume 5, released on September 23rd, 1999. Man, the year is going by fast, isn't it? At this point in time, the meta was defined by powerful beaters and draw sources alike. Yu-Gi-Oh! Was solidifying its gameplay loop in a way that would be recognized by early TCG standards. This is recognized further by Volume 5, which many of you may look at it and notice its resemblance to the 2002 TCG core set, Metal Raiders. Imagine if we got cards like Dark Rabbit, Dungeon Worm, and Rose Spectre of Dun this early. Not that it would impact the metagame in any fashion, it's just interesting to ponder about. I mean, there's still a chunk of cards we've yet to receive over in the West, such as Acid Crawler, Bioplant, and Yugioh. Which one would you want to see get imported? And this is my monthly reminder that I would love a Lost Cards set. Konami clearly knew that they opened Pandora's box with Booster 4. As such, there are no notable strong low-level monsters here. The best of the bunch are Armored Zombie, Hyosube, and Pale Beast with a now measly 1500 attack stat. We've come a long way, huh? That's because in V5 there was a greater emphasis on effect monsters. Introducing new monsters that can direct attack on command. While bountiful, it's evident that Konami was scared on their usage, and thus the lineup all have weak attack, with Janjo number 7 being the strongest, sitting at 500 attack, a slow burn card at best. Other cards would be of similar poorness, like Blast Juggler and Larva Moth, though Big Eye would have some use in regards to stacking your draws. More importantly, when it comes to low-level effect monsters, are the new advantage-gaining monsters. Mass Sorcerer lets you draw a card if it inflicts battle damage, which even works if it successfully defends against an attacker. On the other side of the coin, White Magical Hat rips a card from your opponent's hand should inflict damage as well. These are great cards in terms of gaining quick advantage, though the meta climate would not foster this duo right away. Lastly, we have the first ever high-level effect monsters, Saga of the Thunder, Suijin, and Kazejin. Yes, now you can actually summon Gate Guardian off of its attended effect. That is to say, if we're willing to take the challenge, because most people would not want to. Considering that each piece takes 2 tributes, your best line of play would be to abuse the Resurrection rule and combo Gate Guardian with Charity and Reborn. Especially looking at one piece individually, Summon Skull is simply the superior choice. Even more so on release, since the pieces did have slightly different effects. Normally they all share the effect where, once while they're on the field, a monster attacking into them gets their attack reduced to 0. But in V5, their effects only reduce damage taken to 0, which was so bad that Konami changed it to the modern effect upon their next printing in October 2000. So while Konami attempted to remedy the beater issue, it was clear that they were still holding back in the effects department. And if you're enjoying this video, feel free to drop a like or subscribe to the channel if you haven't. It's all free support, but if you want to help the channel out further, then consider joining my Patreon for as little as $2 a month. You can hear my extended thoughts there. That aside, one of the coolest cards you can get from the set has to be Black Skull Dragon, which, yes, it translates to Black Demon's Dragon and not B Demon's Dragon. This card's a bit interesting as, taking a look at the Bandai art, it looks more in line with the pink hues of Bandai's Summon Skull. The manga certainly looks like it was meant to have white bones akin to Summon Skull's OCG artwork, so I can only fathom that Konami read Black Skull Dragon as literally Black Skull. But as a card, this is the strongest readily available fusion monster since Ultimate Dragon and Meteor Black were both prize cards. Unfortunately, while Summon Skull is played in most decks, running Red Eyes and Polymerization is a tough task. Long since been the days of playing Blue Eyes White Dragon to make this guy worth it. With Black Skull out of the way, the chase card of V5 is definitely Change of Heart. Steal a monster for a turn. Wow. It doesn't matter if it's face up, face down, stronger or weaker, if it exists on your opponent's field, you can nab it. You may already see where this is heading to. Summon Skull plays, baby. This translates to indirect removal for the cost of one card. Moreover, this could be offset should your stolen monster be a flip monster like the popular Magician of Faith. And Heart is not once per turn, so you could potentially steal 2 monsters, if not more, if you also control a set Faith. Also, Heart is at 3, so yeah, this snowballs to ensure more potential game-winning pushes. One thing that was nice about V5 compared to previous sets were the sheer amount of back row cards. Remember, a set like Volume 4 didn't even include a single trap card, despite it including Mask of Darkness. Perhaps it was at this point where Konami pivoted to cover all types of cards and plays, not just beaters and magic, which could have been a reflection of the Duel Monsters video game's mindset. Because you look at Heart, where it lives based off of player interaction, which beforehand was minimal. Another such card is Soul Release, further emphasizing that increased intercommunication. Something interesting is that it was possible that, on release, Soul Release had to banish from both players' graveyards. Quote, remove up to 5 cards from each player's graveyards. These cards cannot be used during that duel, unquote. Another point of discussion is that the last set had Call of the Grave, and this set also included Call of Darkness, both cards that counter Monster Reborn, which clearly meant Konami wanted as many cards that could counter Reborn as possible. Which is ironic that Cheerful Coffin was introduced here too, which was designed to combo with Reborn. This is not to say that Heart was the only power card, as V5 introduced Duelist to tribute to the Doomed. Despite it needing a cost, it removes any selected monster proactively. Unlike Fissure, it can hit face-down monsters, making it more in line with Heart. Though both cards do require careful handling as they can easily backfire if the target is suboptimal like a wall, or the fear of an incorrect play may benefit the opponent the following turn. On the flip side, setting a monster now brings a risk for the owner. This ultimately slowed down the draw games of Volume 4's era. Now Duelists may even set beaters in preparation for a Doomed. This was a bargaining format. And of course, the big cards also came in the brand new rarity, Ultra Parallel Rare, which brought up the issue of certain duelists knowing the card they would draw due to the foil's traction, similarly to the booster set Prince, but possibly in a slightly easier fashion to the trained duelist. Think about the TCG's Hobby League cards. In terms of what the deck game looked like, we started to see a change here. With all these overt power cards, good stuff was less pile of solid cards and more this is the standard to which decks need to be. Thus, the concept of the standard deck was born. Now it wasn't just high firepower and excellent draw cards, but you had amazing removal cards to boot. Games in comparison to past formats were fast, which is unfortunate due to V5 introducing new strategies like low and high axis effect monsters. It's like all the top decks meshed together for what you could potentially call a tier 0 format filled with mind games. Though I suppose a Mass Virus deck could still be played since Mass Sorcerer is an additional target to crush card Virus alongside Mask of Darkness, a strategy that could deal with the abundant beaters. Still worth mentioning, but some people who had access to it were trying out Exodia at the time, albeit at a very early stage in the deck's inception. Also, technically speaking, Gate Guardian was possible too. And of course, Price of Blood was still around in certain areas. That is to say, none of these decks were big in regards to the overall meta, historically speaking. There's a lot to talk about Volume 5. It continued the chaos started in Volume 4 by adding more interactable elements via, while balanced, still incredibly powerful tools. Even still, given the card pool and the minuscule limited list, variety was non-existent from the environment. Konami had a change of heart in relation to the direction of the game, yet it was more of an adjacent lane than anything. If they wanted the game to not self-destruct, they would have to reduce the speed limit. And boy would they, which we'll get to that next time.